Hey guys, let's get more news about Miami Heat, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Keeping the faith, former Miami Heat dancer is on God's squad now. The transition from Miami Heat dancer to Miami Heat chaplain hasn't always been easy for Adriana Smith. A Heat dancer for 3 seasons, 2016 to 2019, Smith didn't make the team until her 5th try. By then she had just joined another team, God's Squad. Smith, ordained in 2022, is an evangelist at Victory Faith Chapel in West Palm Beach. She also has a ministry called The Huddle. But some people had a problem with Smith after she went on Facebook and posted 2 photos of her, one of her dancing with a bare midriff and the other of her preaching. A lot of people were encouraging, knowing that I had to go where God sent me. But other people were trying to stone me, Smith said in a figurative sense. That picture of me in my Heat uniform with a bit of my stomach out went viral. People were wondering how I could be a Heat dancer and also a preacher. Smith kept the faith, literally. I knew the truth, said Smith, 32. I understood when I made the team what God was going to use me to do. People judged me a lot. But I wasn't going out to party. After games, I would go preach. As preachers, we are taught to be a light, even in darkness. Smith has been a light to many people, including 22-year-old Alexandra Alemany, who recently finished her 3rd season as a Heat dancer. Alemany said Smith meets with the dancers in the locker room before every home game. Each time, Smith gives the women a card with a different Bible verse on one side and an inspiring quote on the other. Then, Smith explains what's on the card and goes out of her way to speak to each dancer individually. Smith, who is a Christian, then offers a group prayer, taking specific requests. What's amazing about Adriana is that even if there are girls on the team who don't have the same faith as her, they still love Smith. They love the person she is and the message she shares. She never talks about dancing. She talks about life and how we can become the best version of ourselves. Alemany, who is planning to return to Miami-Dade College this fall to major in chemistry, said she feels seen by Smith. I was raised with a faith in God, but I wasn't overly religious, said Alemany, who is also the director of business growth for a staffing company. When I started living on my own is when I found a new relationship with God. Then I met Adriana, and she became not only my chaplain but also my mentor. Smith, a Miami native, has had her own journey to God. Speaking and performing in front of crowds comes naturally to Smith, who as a kid thought she would be a singer. As it turns out, she didn't have the voice for that profession, and she turned to dancing. Smith didn't come from a family of churchgoers, but she always loved God. Then, in December of 2015, something dramatic happened. I was 25, and I had an on-and-off relationship with my boyfriend at the time, Smith said. It was not a good situation, but I went to see him in Orlando. As I hugged him goodbye, I heard a strong and audible voice saying, "This is the last time you will see this person." It was such a loud voice that I started crying. I knew it was God. Smith decided to pursue a relationship with God. I was in a place of surrender, Smith said. I didn't want to run anymore. I had come to the end of myself. Just a few months later, she made the Heat dance team for the first time. That's not a coincidence to Smith, who believes God is using her to reach people who might otherwise be unreachable. One of those persons Smith has reached is Karina Webb, a 32-year-old former Heat dancer who had turned her back on religion, only to return like never before. I was born Catholic, but after age 17 or 18, I stepped away from church completely, Webb said. I had my own thoughts on God. 3 glaring issues the Miami Heat need to fix this offseason. The Miami Heat's 2023-24 season had its memorable moments, but as a whole, it was one to forget. There was that historic 7-game losing streak, tying for the team's longest since 2008. Unfortunately, this Heat build has shown inconsistencies across the board for the past 2 seasons. If there wasn't that miraculous underdog run from the play-in to the NBA Finals a year ago, the concern would be much higher. Maybe the core gets split up prior to the start of the season had they performed in that playoffs like a play-in team normally would. With all that success, came the infamous run-it-back style from the Heat front office in regards to the roster. Outside of that 2023 playoff run, this team has had those inconsistency problems for 2 consecutive years. The problems here aren't necessarily all to blame certain individuals. Instead, it is more team-wide, which is surprising coming from a franchise that puts pride on an organizational culture. There are 3 glaring issues that this Heat team needs to address and fix if they want to get back to contender level. It is no secret that the Miami offense has struggled to score and keep up with opponents this season. The Heat ranked 21st in offensive efficiency, a major statistic that needs to change. Teams that have had success recently, like last season's champion Denver Nuggets and the 2 teams in this year's finals, the Boston Celtics and Dallas Mavericks, are lethal on that end. The Heat witnessed firsthand just how dominant Boston was in that facet of their first-round playoff games. Miami simply couldn't keep up with their shooting pace and ran them off the floor during those 4 losses. A key to fixing that issue is confidence and shooting with that green light. In the Heat's lone playoff win in Game 2 inside TD Garden, the team's shooters were letting it fly with no hesitation. This is a roster that is more than capable of shooting the ball efficiently, but they were noticeably overpassing throughout the series. There is a saying, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and that is something that applies to this season's Heat offense. Should Blazers sign Heat's Haywood Highsmith? The Portland Trail Blazers aren't the flashiest free agent destination, but they may be able to make a shrewd signing or 2. Bleacher Report contributor Greg Swartz writes that a dream candidate for the Blazers is Heat forward Haywood Highsmith. Haywood Highsmith would be a realistic dream target following his strong season with the Miami Heat. Portland already has a logjam at guard, and it'll get Robert Williams III back from knee surgery next year to beef up the center position. Highsmith would give the Blazers a 6 feet 7 inches wing who can play behind Grant and take over his spot if he gets traded at some point. Highsmith shot 39.6% from 3 this past season, so he could help keep the floor open for Scoot Henderson and others to operate. Highsmith, 27, averaged a career-best 6.1 points in 66 appearances with the Heat this past season, a sign that he is improving and could have a larger role outside of Miami. If Highsmith signed a short deal with a team like the Blazers, he could have a larger role down the line, and it would allow him to ink another big deal when he becomes a free agent again in his late 20s or early 30s. The Blazers need shooting help, and Highsmith would provide that. As a team that finished 27th in three-point percentage, targeting shooters is key, and Highsmith is one that would help the cause without breaking the bank. And you fan? What do you think of the situation of Haywood Highsmith? Leave your opinion in the comments.